Hi, and welcome to the special edition of Cole's Live. We have Richard Cole, always here to answer your birding questions. We're sorry we're a little bit late today. We had some technical difficulties, but we have an exciting show. And tell us what's on the show today, Richard.
Oh, today we're actually going to show you the 2020 Cole's calendar.
All those beautiful shots. Yeah, you're going to get to see those.
So we'll go through those one by one. And this is the first real reveal of it.
Right.
We've teased everybody with some pictures that may be in it and things like that, but it's ready to go. So it's coming soon to a retail outlet near you.
Yeah,
like
and
Amazon.
we've got another thing we're going to tell you about, which is always our favorite hummers.
Hummingbirds. Over the years, I've had a lot of questions posed to me about hummingbirds and a lot of discussions with people about what hummingbird they saw at their feeder. And I would say one thing, they would say, no, that can't be it because of this, that, or the other. So we're going to go through really the points about how to identify a hummer at your feeder and some of the things that they can do to kind of fool you because they have so many different looks.
Yeah. So it's going to be a great show today. We really want to encourage all of you. You had some. We love that so many people take part in our calendar contest, and we love to be able to show off your photographs. And please share this out. And actually, for one lucky person, we're just going to pick at random who shares out the broadcast. You can win a Cole's nectar. We now have Cole's Hummingbird nectar, so you'll win one of those, and just for sharing, and we'll announce that before the end of the broadcast today. So please share these out, and that way more people get to see all these beautiful pictures.
And on the nectar, you may be the first to have one.
Yeah,
you may be the actual first person. They're ready to go. They're not out in the stores yet. It's a brand new product that we spent a lot of time developing, something that's really good for the hummingbirds and not the normal stuff you find out there in stores. So we're excited about it.
Yeah.
And we'd love for you to have one. Just
right. All you got to do is share.
Go for it.
Yeah. So let's get right to it. Let's take a look at the pictures that are going to be in the Cole's 2020 calendar. So this is the cover. This is gorgeous. So this is Eastern Bluebirds by Marilyn Burke. And you can kind of explain what we're seeing here, Richard.
Well, actually, you're seeing one of the reasons I think people like bluebirds in a way, because the male and female really participate in the raising young. This is a juvenile on the left, of course, and Papa on the right. And he's about to get, I can't quite tell what it is, but some kind of tasty morsel. And I'm sure there's 3 or 4 other of those birds around there somewhere close by.
I love how spotted they are. They're so cute, but they're not much smaller than the regular birds.
No, and at this point, I think they're showing their thrush heritage a little bit with a spotted chest.
Yeah,
so,
I love it.
Great picture.
Thank you so much. And this is a Northern Flicker for January 2020. The photo is by Jessica Day Perry. And we really want to invite all of you guys to make your comments about the photographs and to tell us any little insights that you have about these photographs. So go ahead, Richard. Tell us a little bit about this Northern Flicker.
This is a bird I really like. At a former residence I had a nesting pair there many years, and so I got used to these birds. A lot of people don't see them or don't notice them. It's a woodpecker, and it's one of our nice-looking woodpeckers, I believe. And they actually are one of the birds that, if you're observing them over a period of time, you may get a chance to see them do a special dance.
Really?
And you see some of the shorebirds and larger birds do bill wiping and sword play with their bills. These birds will actually do that as part of the courtship and other family functions. I have seen 3 or 4 of these right around each other, posturing and clicking their bills together and then freezing their movements and going back to it. Just a great little ceremony or whatever they're doing. And so I've always had a fondness for the flicker. And nice bird to have around. They will take the nesting boxes too.
Really?
Yes. Unlike some of the other woodpeckers, hard to get a nesting box. A flicker will take a large nesting box.
A flicker just says, whatever, I'm just going to take it, right?
Yeah.
And then we're going to go on to, so we do have one quick comment. We're going to come back to this one real quick, Alex, but we have one quick comment that Ron Ballard wants to know when the Cedar Waxwings are coming and what he can do to put out some feed or anything to get them to come to his house.
What time is it now?
Why?
They'll be here probably, depending on where you are, in the fall is when you're more likely to see them. They're still dispersed for breeding, but they will tend to form small flocks and move around feeding in the wintertime, mostly on berries from bushes. So if you have a line of holly trees and you have other trees in your area that have a lot of berries on it in the wintertime, you're going to see some if you just keep your eyes open. And a trick I learned a long time ago to realize whether it's cedar waxwings or not without getting a close look is to look at these guys when they land in a tree. If there's, say, 10 or 15 of them, and you see these birds up in a tree, typically, not all the time, but most of the time, once they settle in that tree, they're all facing the same way. I have no idea why. It seems to be what they do. And so you see all these birds sitting there instead of different looks over here, looks over there, and they're all sitting in pretty much in the same direction. And then, of course, they'll all come down from where they are, most likely, to a lower bush with berries in it and just take hold of it. I have holly trees on a fence line of mine, and they are in those. Of course, those are up higher, so I get to see them up there. I have some other berry-producing bushes down lower. They'll all come down at one time and hit those and then go back up. I love to watch those birds.
So we just need more berry. You need more berry bushes,
yeah, so
right?
you'll see them in the colder weather. They're easier to spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about February 2020. We've got Carolina Wrens, and this is a photo by Linda Robbins.
Yeah, that's a nice photo. The Carolina Wren is we don't think there again. It's one of those birds that's not super colorful, but they're really neat. You can get them to nest around with different things. I use an old, basically like one of the bags you use at a grocery store. I have it stapled to the side of a house under the eave, and I put an old piece of coat hanger down inside of it to keep it from closing up flat, and put it at an angle. And every year they go in there and build a nest.
Aww.
And so I like them. A lot of people find them in their garage in a little basket or something back in a corner. They'll sneak in and out. So they're nook and cranny nesters.
Yeah.
And they're kind of cute.
Now, this is a male-female, right? Or not a feeding baby, or not sure?
You can't tell.
Yeah.
This is one of the birds that the male and female really look alike.
Yeah.
And so once the baby's out of the nest moving around, sometimes if you still have a little bit of the yellow on the bill, real close around the bill, it might be a little wider and a little more yellow because it hasn't filled out yet completely. But other than that, they're the same looking birds. And once the babies are out, as with many of the birds, they're almost the size of the adults anyhow.
Yeah, I love that feeder too in that picture. So now we'll move on to March. You gotta love this. Northern Cardinal and a Downy Woodpecker. And the photo is by Michelle Bridgeforth. And we have to thank Michelle. She is always participating in our contest and has beautiful photographs.
Yes, it is. And I'm glad to see something other than just the adult male cardinal.
Yeah,
in a
and
picture.
You know, I think the female cardinals are just beautiful.
They are. And even if I was picking the calendar picture, I might just choose the male. That's what we do.
Yeah.
But somebody was smart enough in our staff to pick this one because, and I'm glad they did because it does show the female. And then right next to it, there is a Downy Woodpecker. It looks almost exactly, unless you get really into those woodpeckers, almost exactly like the hairy woodpecker. And the difference is the Downy's a little bit smaller. Shape, the colorations and the wing bars and all are close to each other, but the bill on the Downy doesn't look like a woodpecker bill.
Right.
It just looks like a small bird's bill. Actually,
now, what would you think if there were a caption to that picture? What's going on there?
I think each one of them's just a little intimidated by the other.
I think that woodpecker's like, back off.
It could be. It
this
looks
is
like
mine.
it's got his top knot up a little bit, like don't mess with my seed.
Yeah,
But,
I'm claiming this.
Yeah. Now, if that bird on the right were a hairy, the bill would look, like I said, a little bit longer. It'd almost be the length of the width of its head there. So one way to tell the part between those two birds.
Yeah, well, it's certainly a great picture, and I love how close up it is that you can really see in their face. This is a brown thrasher, and the photo is by Dory Dice, and that is beautiful. Love the colors in that.
Yeah, that's a nice bird. It's a state bird of several states, Georgia included. There again, you can see the streaking on the breast. That's a group of birds that a lot of them have that type of streaking on the breast. It's just a gorgeous bird, very handsome. Male and females look about alike, so you can't tell the difference. Just you can see these birds. They get confused sometimes with a couple of the other birds, but these are decent-sized birds. They're a little bigger than some of the small warbler-type birds that may have some coloration like that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful picture. Let's move on to May for the eastern bluebirds. Oh my gosh, what do you think of this one?
Well, there's the rest of the young. And 1, 2, 3, 4, looks like 5 young coming on. They're decent age. They're getting up there. And they all have their mouths open waiting for a handout. And it looks like someone's feeding them dried mealworms.
Yes, it
And
does.
so I bet you they're Cole's
Now,
dried mealworms
that's a
too.
pretty big brood, right? 5?
That's about right. 4 and 5 is a good number. 6 gets pretty big. 3 is a little small. So we see a lot of times 5 is a great number to say. If you go, how many are you going to have? It's probably going to be 5. So when you're monitoring your bluebird box and you want to know what the schedule is going to be, you start watching. You get the first egg, and then you check daily. Those birds will not sit on the eggs until the last one's laid. So they want them all to hatch at the same time as opposed to sequentially. So they won't start incubating with the first egg. So you just count and say on day 5 of laying, they've got 5th egg, and you come back to day 6, there's still only 5 eggs. Mark that on your calendar. From then you start counting, and you're going to look at the roughly 2 weeks, maybe 17 days, 18 on the outside, 14 on the 13 on the quick side. They're going to hatch. A lot of it depends on temperature.
Yeah.
And then they'll start feeding. So you can get some idea what's going on. You can look in there every now and then. And then once they're young and they're in there, you can check them every now and then too. We've gone over how to do that before. But once the young get up to beyond 10 or 11, 12 days old, you just leave the box alone because they may jump out on you a little early.
And I love the dad's look on his face. Is like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I got a lot to do here. With 5 ones all yelling at him to be fed. One of the things I love about the calendar is I think birds, through them, is such a beautiful way to see the seasons. And I always think, at the beginning of spring, how beautiful it is to see the bluebirds come and start nesting and having their babies. So thanks to Marilyn Burke for that. Now let's move on to June. Let's see June's picture. Love this.
Oh, there we go.
Baltimore Oriole by Berlin, Poland. And so what do you think is going on there? Maybe looking for some insects?
It probably is. It could be looking for berries. It could be looking for pieces of fruit. It could be looking for a tasty insect. Probably where it's at is probably an insect. It would be looking for there.
And as bright as it is, that's the male, right?
It's the male, yes. And that's a nice bird. I wish we had more of them nesting here in the deep south, but we don't. We see those further up in the nesting season. We see them passing through, which is nice. And it's an interesting bird, very colorful, and I see one every now and then, generally, like I said, in migration. It's always a thrill to catch one going by.
And we do want to remind our viewers, just feel free to make comments about the pictures or comments about where you're watching from. We'd love to know. If any of our photographers are watching, we'd love for you to make comments and provide us with some insight about your particular photograph or one maybe that you like. So, and you can always ask Richard questions. He's here every first Wednesday of the month at 3 o'clock. To be able to answer your birding questions. So please make this interactive. We'd love to hear it. And we do want to remind you, if you share out the broadcast, you're eligible to win Cole's new hummingbird nectar. So that announcement aside, we'll go back to the beautiful pictures, right? Tell us about this, Richard.
Well, that's a hummingbird, obviously.
It's a BlackChind Hummingbird.
And it happens to be a male. You can tell because it's got the whole dark head. And it's called a BlackChind Hummingbird. That's a very special bird for me.
Really?
Very quick, we're going to talk about hummingbirds a little bit, but 25 years ago, it was known that in the east of the Mississippi River, you had the ruby-throated hummingbird. That was it. That's all you had. In the western U.S., you had the BlackChind and the rufous further west. That changed with research that was done. I was lucky enough to get to participate in a little bit of it. And in fact, I was credited with finding the first BlackChind Hummingbird in the state of Georgia.
Wow.
And it was around Christmas time, actually. It came to a feeder because I had my feeder out. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes.
Yeah.
And it showed up. And what we had learned over this time with a lot of research is when the birds start moving south, all of them don't go south to Central America. Some of them go straight east, some of them go southeast, end up down into Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina, North Carolina area. And they spend the winter here. And they
Yeah.
survive here without big trouble.
Wow.
And we get them coming back year after year because we catch them, check the band, or
Yeah.
put the band on them, and subsequent years they come back, yep, it's a banded bird, it's the same
Yeah.
bird. We'll see them living 3 or 4 years, which is a long time,
Yeah.
at a feeder in the wintertime in the southeastern states. I'm sure that happens in other states. We know there's been sightings in New Jersey and other places further north. We don't know as much about how well they survive up there as opposed to where it's a little more temperate down here. But yeah, they're here. But that bird was special for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take one more quick look at it. I love
It's-
all the different colors in this. What were you going to say? And this is by, let's see, Marlis Brightwell. Go ahead. I'm
And
sorry.
in this picture, it is a male. We're going to talk about this again in just a little bit too, about the whole head's black. And it's called a BlackChind. Well, actually, part of that front of under the chin area is actually purple. You just
Really?
don't see it. It's like under the ruby throat, it's ruby red.
Uh-huh.
Well, not necessarily. It depends on how the light hits it. It is iridescent. So right now, you're not seeing light being reflected off of it, so you don't really get the strong hint of purple. But part of it right under the chin is black.
You can see it though a little bit.
You
It
can
looks
see
like
it a
you
teeny
can.
bit, yeah.
Uh-huh.
If it was really lit up, it'd be a strong,
Yeah.
bright purple, halfway up the gorget, which is that area under the bill. The rest of the way up toward the mouth area is, in fact, black.
Wow.
It's a black
What
chin.
Yeah. What a great
Male,
picture.
of course, adult male.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to this little guy in August. Love the colors of this lazuli bunting. It's
Yeah.
really beautiful.
Yeah.
Love that color.
And,
And this is by Lindia Radis.
yeah, that's more of a western bird. You're not likely to see any of them around here. You could. Everything's possible with birds. That's what part of the fun
Yeah.
is. But just a nice, there again, it's one of the birds that's not that super strong saturated color. It's just mild and pretty, just a cute bird.
And is that a male, do you think?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So because those colors are that bright, you can tell that. And what a
Basically,
great
if
way
you're
to
looking
see
at a female,
August.
lots of luck knowing what it is.
Well, yeah, because
'Cause
they're
it's-
designed to blend in.
it's not gonna look like that, yeah.
Yeah, that's part of how they're designed, right? So let's go to September. And this
Oh.
is the ever popular, you always see the goldfinch, American goldfinch in the photo by Kathy Desolé. And she's another one that is always entering our contest, and we so appreciate her. She has some beautiful photographs of birds.
And this, is, of course, is an adult male. And by this time of year, maybe October, November, that bird right there will not look like that anymore. It'll go through
Really?
most of its feathers, and it will actually look more like the female. If you've seen the more drab birds with these guys in little
Yeah.
flocks, the female's not nearly strongly that colored. And so the males and females look almost identical during the winter months. So right now it's still in breeding plumage around here because they breed later in the year. They don't get started in like March or early April. A little bit later in the year, they start their broods.
Yeah.
And probably time for something of their favorite foods out in the fields.
And it was eating there, it looked like black oil sunflower seeds,
Yes.
right? And is that one of their favorite things to
They
eat?
like sunflower.
Yeah.
They love sunflower, and they're able to, because of the bills, more like a
Pop it.
finch. It can
Yep.
they can crack those shells without any trouble.
Yeah, it looks like he's quite proud of that.
Yes.
Like, look what I got to eat. So let's go to October, where we see the always popular but surprisingly female here,
Yes.
right? Northern Cardinal by Jane Walker. Jane loves her cardinals.
Yes, and so we're not going to just show all the males this time. We're going to spread this out a little bit, give
Yeah.
everybody a shot. But that's a pretty picture. It's a pretty bird. It's obviously in a backyard, and I can just picture looking out the back door, toward the swing set or whatever, and there this is sitting there looking back at you. And nice bird, nice
I know,
picture, nice
they're
composition.
So cute, I think. So Ron Ballard, we can come back out for a second if you want. Ron Ballard has another question for us. He says, we see ruby-throated hummers mostly. Are there other hummers throughout the Southeast that maybe we just are not seeing? And if so, is there anything I can do to draw those elusive ones out? And I know we're going to talk about hummers a little more later, so you can save it if you want. But
let's
you can.
let's save that
Okay.
one because we're going to
Okay.
talk about that actually in just a few minutes. We're right past the calendar. Hang on, Ron. There,
Ron,
we
stay
will get to you in just a
tuned.
moment.
We will get to it, and we do appreciate it. Jane Walker, she has something.
Oh,
I do love them indeed. Was on the courtyard when I saw her. I know, and Jane always enters her pictures, and she always has great cardinals. And I know she has a lot of feeders out there to get some great pictures. Thank you, Jane. She's
Yep.
so cute, isn't she?
wow. Yeah.
So November 2020, that classic. Could you have a calendar without this?
Yeah.
This is by Michelle Bridgeforth. I love how the chest color and the background color are so much the same in this. That's so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. That's a. It looks like he posed for the picture. That's a
know,
nice
doesn't it?
family
Yeah.
portrait right there. Good, clean-looking
Yeah.
bird. The feather's nice. I love you can get the good shot of the eye ring right there.
Mm-hmm.
And these birds, kind of the harbinger of spring in a way. One of the many that we
Yeah.
often see them coming back into our territories
Yeah.
very early in the year.
It's beautiful.
Working the yards and lawns for worms and bugs.
And Michelle, again, thank you. She also, just like Jane, is one of the people who participates in our contest often, and we love the pictures. So now we're going to go to December. We're almost done.
Oh yeah.
This looks like a Christmas card to me. This is
Yeah.
Morning Doves by John Hayward. Love this picture.
It could well be a little pair, and
Yeah.
it's just pretty. There again, the composition is great. Good job, and they're sitting out there soaking up the sun, getting ready to come over to a feeder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you and I talked earlier about how there's sometimes people make jokes about them, but they're wonderful. I love to.
Yeah.
I always put food on the ground because they are ground feeders. They're most comfortable there.
Yes, they are.
So they are beautiful. And then we'll move on to January
Oh, there we
2021.
go.
And there you gotta have one
Yeah.
mail calendar, just absolutely gorgeous. I said mail calendar, mail cardinal for the Cole's calendar, and the photograph is by Patricia Walengevich, and that is beautiful.
This is your bonus bird
Yeah,
for the calendar. Get
absolutely.
bird number 13 or so. Yeah.
Yeah,
On
and
month
nothing
13.
depicts winter better than cardinals. I think just this
Right.
bright beauty
Yeah.
in the middle of kind of desolate.
Especially in snow
Yeah.
scenes, you see them pictured there a lot.
Yeah, you
Great,
just
great,
gotta love
great
it.
shot there.
And John Hayward tells us, yes, this is a pair. So
Yeah.
you were absolutely
Yeah.
correct. That's a couple. And then Jane Walker's also congratulating Leslie Post. So thank you all. The calendar is available now, isn't it? Didn't you say it's out right now?
It
If
is
not, it'll
out.
be
How widely
soon.
distributed it is, I mean, it's
You can
just
find it on
finished. It's going
Amazon.
out now. Amazon probably has them already. I'm
Right.
not positive about that if
And
they're
you
up
can
there yet. But
Check the website always,
Yeah.
coleswildbird.com, where you can check the website. You can also check on the new nectar that we have. And Jane and John, in case you're joining us late, I want you to know that if you share this out, you're also eligible to win some hummingbird nectar. So we're going to pick a winner just randomly of everybody who shares out the broadcast, and somebody will win the new Cole's hummingbird nectar. So we want to get on to talking about hummingbirds. We got started a little late, so we're going to go a little late.
and we have a question to answer, don't we?
Yes, we do. Ron Ballard asked about how you attract anything other than ruby-throated hummers.
Yeah. This time of year, I always like to. Oh, there we go.
Aren't they cute?
There's a little posturing going on there. The one on the left is saying, "No, I don't want you around my feeder." And you'll see them sharing a lot of times. Most of the time, you don't. If there's plenty of food, they'll fight over it. Even if there's a little bit of food, they'll fight over it. These guys just don't like to share.
Yeah.
But if it gets really cold, really wet, there's not much food, you'll see them sitting down, sharing a feeder. But can you see a different type of hummingbird? Generally, you have to go to another part of the country. It's a different type of hummingbird.
Okay.
In general, the eastern United States is ruby throats.
Okay.
This is very general. In the central United States, it's really like black chins. Then in part of that, and all in the west and up the west coast, and all the western United States is rufous. Three main types of hummingbirds we have here. And like I said, about 20 years ago, 25 years ago, it's like that's the way it is. Any bird other than that, or any bird basically seen after November is going to die. It can't live. The poor little thing, it won't be anything to eat, it's going to die. we know now through a lot of the research that that's just not the case. And I had heard some reports of some hummingbirds being somewhere in wintertime, and I met a guy by the name of Bob Sargent, who was out of Alabama, who was doing some research in that area, along with hummingbird migration. And we got together, and he came and banded one of the birds I'd heard about, and so we got to know each other. And lo and behold, Christmas Eve, soon after I met Bob, I looked out and there was a hummingbird. It was hard to tell what it was because the sun wasn't right, the angle wasn't right, and it just so happened it was a young male BlackChind hummingbird.
Wow, yeah.
And I couldn't get the color, it only had black. But then as the weeks went by, we knew what it was because Bob came over, captured the bird, we weighed it, measured it, positively identified it as BlackChind, and put a little U.S. Fish and Wildlife or ID bracelet on it so we could always tell it. The bird hung around a while, a lot of people got to see it. It was the first one ever recorded in the state of Georgia. From that point on, we started seeing other birds because more and more people started listening. Keep your feeder out in the wintertime. And we were always fighting that, I put my feeder out, or take your feeder down by Labor Day, or the birds are going to stay here at the feeder and freeze to death in the wintertime.
Yeah.
And that's just not true. The birds move through when there's peak availability of food for them to eat on their long trip down to Central America. So nothing you're going to do other than putting them in a cage is going to keep those birds here. The only way they'll stay is if this is where they want to be, or as if they're too sick to move.
Wow.
So what we found is the birds in the western United States, a lot of those birds actually come east and southeast to spend the winter. It's what that particular bird is supposed to do. So in the wintertime, if you keep a feeder out, especially in the southeast, and even as far north sometimes, you may see another bird on your feeder. And if you do, call somebody and let them know. Check somebody with your local Audubon Society. Check your local wild bird stores and say, look, here it is, November, December, January. I've got a hummingbird in my feeder. Somebody might want to check this out. And the reason is, most likely it is not, if you're in the east, it's most likely not a ruby throat. I've been doing this, like I said, a long time. And I have seen 2 or 3 ruby throats at feeders in the wintertime that looked reasonably healthy. I have seen so many others that weren't ruby throats. They're western species. Georgia now claims 12 species of hummingbirds.
Wow.
12. So a little bit of everything has been found in the state because people are looking for them in the wintertime. We've had many where they come to a feeder, the next year they come back to it, so they'll spend the winter here instead of Central America, what would be normal for them. They go somewhere else and doing fine there, and they come back here. So we know this goes on. So put the feeder out. Let somebody know if you see something in the wintertime. And that gets me to the next little topic, though, identifying these guys and talking to people about what's at their feeder. In the summertime, the wintertime's a whole different game. It probably isn't a ruby throat in the east, or probably isn't a rufous in the west, unless you're on the California coast or something. You can see other birds, and they all give you different looks. A ruby throat is a good one to talk about. I know it pretty well. Someone say, this one is different. It's taller. It's taller than all the other birds. I know this one is so good. And say, no, well, it's actually just posturing, and they can stick that neck really far out, much of what you saw in the picture. They can go out twice that far. If they really stretch it out, it'll go way out, so they can look very tall. If they pull their neck down, they can look very short and squatty. The color for the males is black. Unless the sun hits it and reflects like a mirror back to your eyes, then you'll see the ruby red, which can also be very orangey or very gold looking, depending on the angle of the sun, time of day. So people say, no, I've got one with a gold gorget. I've got one with an orange one. It's the ruby throat. Or I've got one, the whole head's black. Well, it is if the sun's not reflecting it.
And they're doing just as you're talking about. As they are meeting up with each other, they're making themselves taller and bigger. You can see that. They're stretching up to say, hey, I'm bigger than you.
And we're pretty sure they know how to flash the other bird. That didn't sound right, did it? They know where the sun is. They know their gorget shines. And I think they know how to tilt their head to let that other bird see, I'm a big male. I've got this beautiful color gorget under my neck. So we don't see it unless we get the sun just right. So that's one of the reasons it's hard to identify some of these birds. Although you know what they are, I get fooled sometimes when I look out and see a bird on a feeder. It's like, it's smaller, it's taller. look at the color, and then just think about it for a minute. No, it's a ruby-throat.
Yeah.
And if you're somewhere else, it's one of the other birds that's normal in your area.
They are proof that like tough
Yeah.
things come in small packages. They'll fly
Yes.
right next to you. They don't care. They will
Yes.
intimidate each other. That is so funny. We do have a question from Leslie. Leslie Post asks, thanks for the hummingbird facts. I'm in Massachusetts and my little visitors will be leaving in the next few weeks.
Yes.
I've never left a feeder out later than the end of September. Is that wrong? She's in Massachusetts.
Now, typically what everybody says is wrong is leaving it out. Oh, that's wrong. You shouldn't do that. But no, that does not keep the bird there. If the bird is in the area because it wants to be there or because it has to be there for maybe some health
Yeah.
issue it's having, the feeder is a good thing to have. And
Yeah.
you may see the bird. And like I said, if you see one past November or past the time that your birds normally are out of the territory you're in, a little earlier up there, a little later in the south, call somebody who knows something about birds in your area or call the Audubon Society. And somebody may want to come out and actually capture the bird and tag it and identify it.
Yeah.
But yeah, don't worry about putting the feeder out in the wintertime. Put some out and keep your eye on it. You might be surprised. You might get a bird. That's a real treat in the wintertime.
Well, we are out of time.
Yeah.
You're right. It is such a treat. Such a treat to see them right now feeding before they, as you say, get tanked up before their big migration.
Yeah.
So we have a winner to announce, and it's the same person who had so many comments. That is Ron Ballard. He shared out the broadcast, so he will win some Cole's Hummingbird nectar. So congratulations,
Way to
Ron.
go, Ron.
Yeah, that was easy enough, right? Well, thank you so much for joining us. And Richard is kind enough to be here every Wednesday at the beginning of the month, the first Wednesday of the month, to answer all of your birding questions. Congratulations to all of you who made the Cole's calendar. And I hope you'll share this out on your Facebook page so that everyone can enjoy all the pictures.
Wonderful.
Yep. Thanks
Tune
so
in
much.
next month.
We'll see you.